Today on Dr. Phil.
No arrests have been made for the deaths of 2 children.
A mom and stepfather accused of the unthinkable.
I believe Cody and Julia killed those children.
The family wants answers.
These kids weren't supposed to die. I want Julia and Codey to spend the rest of their lives in jail.
I had nothing to do with the death of my children.
Now,
they have never spoken out publicly till now.
They face their accusers.
My son did not get murdered.
The controversial autopsy.
You have blunt force trauma to the head.
How can they have done their job if they can't even get this? She's got blue eyes instead of green eyes.
I'm more concerned about the brain injury than the color of her eyes in the autopsy.
There are answers to this, but we can't get it by pointing fingers at us.
What are the answers to it? You have explanations for the death.
They both had an adverse reaction to their vaccinations.
2 deaths in the same home within 3 months of each other. That is highly unusual. Something's going on here. Look at this cute little boy. His name is Darby. He is the spitting image of his father, Tommy, who was briefly married to his mother, Julia. Now, Julia also had a beautiful daughter, Kiera, from a previous marriage. But then tragedy struck these parents and left little Darby's dad and grandmother with a lot of questions. Questions that remain unanswered 4 years later.
Julia and I were married for about 3 years. Darby was born when Kiera was about 2 years old. He was my boy. He looked just like me.
Julia, as a mother, was very distant and neglectful. Julia always seemed to be in pain or tired. I got the impression that she didn't want to be a mom. There was no connection between Darby and Julia. Darby would stay in his crib all the time.
After a while, things really just went downhill. She was on different kinds of pain medication, anti-anxiety medication.
Julia had very bizarre behaviors. Julia faked illnesses, including a cancerous tumor and the disease lupus, which all miraculously went away. She twice self-inflicted wounds upon herself, including throwing herself down the stairs with a broken mirror and cutting herself with a knife, which is totally crazy to me. She was faking it for the attention, for pity, to get away from the kids and not have to do anything.
Our relationship came to an end. Julia took the kids back to Montana. She almost immediately moved in with a new boyfriend named Cody.
I was worried for the children.
On June 27th, 2010, my mom called me and said Darby just died. I didn't want to believe it. They did an autopsy. There was bruising on his head. He had spots of missing hair that had been pulled out. He had 2 broken ribs. It was an undetermined cause of death. I believe there was abuse and neglect.
When I found out that Darby died, I was horrified, and I believe that Julia may have done something to Darby.
Well, Tommy and his mother, Cheryl, were still grieving the death of 19-month-old Darby when tragedy strikes again.
After Darby passed away, Julia and Cody took Kiera and moved to Missouri. Almost 3 months after Darby died, I got a phone call. Kiera died. The police report said that Kiera was standing on a towel and Cody pulled the towel out from under her and she fell and hit her head. And they found her dead the next morning. I don't believe that. You don't get that falling from 3 feet on a carpeted bathroom floor. I believe that she was hit with force. She had bruises on her head, she had bruises on her neck, could be choke marks. She had what they think may have been cigarette burns on her leg. I absolutely believe that they were murdered by Julia and Cody.
After Kiera died, I thought they're going to be arrested. I was sure of it. And here we are, 4 years later. 2 little children have died, and these 2 people are still walking around. I know that Darby and Kiera died of abuse and neglect, and that is homicide. Cody and Julia killed those children. Now I am on a mission to bring justice to these children. I want truth. I want answers about what happened to my grandchildren.
These kids weren't supposed to die. I want Julia and Codey to spend the rest of their lives in jail, where they can't hurt another child.
Well, these untimely deaths, just 3 months apart, eventually made news headlines.
No arrests have been made for the deaths of 2 Flathead Valley children, but today detectives presented a case to the FBI.
18-month-old Darby Hodges died in June 2010. Darby's cause of death was ruled undetermined, but medical examiners found bruising to his head, ear, and legs with previously broken ribs. Darby's biological father, Tom Hodges, became concerned that his son was in some sort of danger. Shortly after the child's death, his mother and her boyfriend moved to Missouri. Just 2.5 months later, his 4-year-old half-sister, Kiera Pulaski, died. A medical examiner said Pulaski had head injuries equivalent to a fall off a 3-story building. The 2 cases will be reviewed in hopes of finding out what really happened to Darby and Kiera.
Okay, well, I'm glad to meet y'all, but I'm very sorry for your loss, of course.
Thank you.
You're convinced of what? What do you believe?
I think the children were killed. Right? It wasn't an accident. You know, I believe they were murdered.
And you agree?
Yes, I have a lot of proof, and from what I watched Julia, the way she was, we were afraid something like that would happen.
Okay. Now, you two have been very vocal about this, right?
Yes, sir.
You even created a Facebook page dedicated to exposing what you believe to be the truth, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is one of the images that you've put up. We murdered 2 children and got away with it. You say that you have proof.
Yes.
What is your proof?
The autopsies. All you have to do is look at the autopsies.
Then why hasn't there been an arrest?
That's our question.
Well, what's the answer? I mean, you've had 3 years to ask that question. What do they tell you?
They're still working on it. The detectives have worked so hard all this time to do this, but the MEs want proof beyond anything. They have, the ME that did Darby's autopsy told me that Darby was neglected, but he can't for sure say that Darby was abused.
You've posted comments on social media
Yes,
that I pulled down. You said, I want to question them both with a baseball bat.
Yeah,
you said
that's something that I did say, and I'll stand by it.
If we all got together as a country, picked today and shot every pedophile and child killer, what would the authorities do? Julia and Codey are monsters who abused and murdered Kiera and Darby Hodges. You are a transparent, cheating, wannabe hooker.
That is true.
Well, what kind of mother was Julia?
It was like she didn't care about being a mother anymore. At first, things were fine, and after a while, she just laid in bed all day. She was too sick to do anything. I get home at the end of the day, and she was out the door, ready to go party with her friends.
Well, you say she was addicted to prescription drugs?
She always had some kind of pill from the doctor.
Okay. And you say you found out she was prostituting herself on Craigslist?
Yes.
And why do you think that?
I came home it was lunchtime. I came home. She was asleep on the couch, had the computer open, had a Craigslist ad about prostitution. She was emailing different men back and forth, naked pictures of herself, costs, how much she cost.
You got upset about that?
Yeah.
You two had a huge fight that resulted in your breakup?
Yes.
Okay, at that point, she says you flew into a rage and killed the dog.
It was 4 days later when I found out the dog was even dead.
Did you kill the dog?
No.
Did you kick the dog?
No, I didn't do anything to the dog. I loved that dog.
So you say she would be in bed all day, sick? What was wrong with her?
She said she had lupus.
Did she have lupus?
I never talked to the doctor. I mean, I think she did, but I never actually talked to the doctor.
Did she tell you she had a stomach tumor?
Yes.
Has she had the tumor removed?
No, it just disappeared. It just, a couple days later, she says, oh, it's gone. You know, they must have looked at it wrong, or it's miraculously gone.
At what point did you suspect that she might be involved with this death of Darby?
You know, Happened several times, you know, just little things. Darby would fall off the bed. I'd be in the living room, she'd be in the bedroom, and, you know, I'd hear Darby scream, cry, and I'd go in the other room. Oh, he fell off the bed, you know, he'll be all right. I never actually saw him fall off the bed, but it happened several times, you know, and then you read the autopsy, and it just, you know, it doesn't just happen that way, you know.
Well, children do fall. I mean, little children do roughhouse and fall.
But that doesn't kill them, though, you know.
All right, well, Julia and Codey have been accused of being baby killers for nearly 4 years. They have never spoken publicly until now, but they say they want their side of this story to be heard, that they are tired of all of these accusations. We're going to meet them after the break.
Innocent people have been accused of murder.
If there was one stitch of evidence saying that I hurt Kiki, we would be on death row.
And later, you certainly have some theories as to how this could have happened.
There are answers to this.
But what are the answers to it? Because
they both had an adverse reaction to their vaccination.
We want everyone to know that these children were murdered by Julia and Codey, the people that were supposed to take care of them. If they didn't want them around, I would have gladly taken them.
Codey and Julia killed those children. They're not safe as babysitters or parents.
We want the world to know what happened.
Well, Tommy and Cheryl believe that Tommy's ex-wife, Julia, and her husband, Codey, killed Tommy and Julia's 19-month-old son, Darby, then 3 months later were responsible for the death of Julia's 4-year-old daughter, Kiera. Now, Julia and Codey adamantly deny the allegations. Make it very clear, they have never done anything to hurt either of these children. Now, they have never spoken out publicly until now. Take a look.
I was married to Tommy for a couple months, and then I got pregnant with Darby. It was a stressful time. Tommy had left for basic training. I was a single mom again and had 2 kids. The marriage finally ended after explosive fights. He kicked the dog across the house, and the next day it died. I took Darby and Kiera, and I went back home to Montana, and I met Codey immediately. I fell in love with him. My heart stopped. I knew he had what I needed.
When Darby passed, I got up early in the morning. His doorway was right by the bathroom. I walked up to him. He was pretty white, bluish colored. I grabbed him up. I got him down on the ground, out of the bed. I hollered for Julia.
Call 911. Darby's not breathing, in a loud, thunderous voice. He said, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." So I remember just doing this. He was giving Darby CPR.
I pumped on his chest.
I remember getting to the hospital and being told that my son had died, and I didn't believe it. He said that it was SIDS. After Darby passed, we had this dark cloud over our head. 2.5 months after Darby passed away, Kiera went to sleep and she just didn't wake up.
Come on, Kiki, it's time to get up. And she didn't respond. I reached down, went to pick her up, and her little head just kind of flopped over.
No, no, no. I said in my head 1,000,000 times, God wouldn't do this to me twice. No way.
There's no way lightning strikes twice, no way. And the paramedics were there so fast, and they just kind of pulled me out of the way. And when the doctor came in and told us that Kiki had passed away.
I was angry, I was sad, I was just in denial.
I just remember screaming her name, just blacking out.
We got home and sat in silence. Besides the tears and the hyperventilating and the pain. I miss them so much.
Well, Julia and Codey say in a split second, they went from grieving parents to suspects, thanks to the war of hate Tommy and Cheryl waged against them.
We woke up in the middle of the night to the detectives.
We were called down to the stations. I was put in a little holding cell.
They split us up and took us into separate rooms and started interrogating. They had a very accusatory tone. They had blood in their eyes.
In your face, would you ever kill for Julia? We know what happened. You just need to tell us.
I was so mad. It's horribly unfair. Innocent people have been accused of murder. I had nothing to do with the death of my children. I never hit them or bruised them, ever. Codey has never abused my kids.
I have no history of verbal abuse, violence, anger issues.
My children did not have abusive type marks on their bodies. They had little nicks and bumps and mosquito bites normal children have. There were no cigarette burns, and I get very angry and passionate because the thought of that happening to my daughter makes me want to punch whoever made that lie up.
Julia and I were turned loose, never charged, free to go. That says you're innocent in my book.
Tommy and Cheryl have waged quite the war towards Codey and I.
We've been bullied and harassed on Facebook by Cheryl and Tommy.
They have called us murderers. They have put up wanted posters saying we killed 2 children and got away with it.
If there was one stitch of evidence saying that I hurt Kiki or that Julia hurt Kiki, we wouldn't even be here right now. We would be on death row. This is Missouri.
We're innocent, 100%.
Well, Julia and Codey are going to join us now, and Codey has never met his accusers, Tommy and Cheryl, because he met Julia when she moved away. So this will be the first time he has met the people that have said he is a monster and a murderer. Julia, Dr. Phil. How are you? Codey, how are you, sir? Okay. Despite the fact that these people have launched this campaign of hate and accusation against you, you've never met either one of them before right now. You, Julia, at this point, you're here because you want your side of the story out. You want people to understand your point of view.
I want my children's names to be cleared, not to be associated with child abuse, just cleared.
Let me ask you something. Do you want to know how these deaths occurred?
Yeah.
And listen, I wasn't there, so I don't know, Codey, certainly, and I'm not making an accusation against you at all. But if in fact he has in some way aggressed against those children and caused them harm or their death, would you want to know that?
Absolutely.
You would want to know that.
But I know for a fact it did not.
Well, no, you don't know for a fact, but you just believe that he didn't,
yes.
True? You don't know. He woke you up when Darby was unresponsive, correct?
Yes.
So you don't know for sure. You don't know what he was doing in the room or not doing.
I know for sure my son did not get murdered. I know for sure my
daughter
did
you know
not.
That?
Because the doctors told us. Because we know. We were there. We were there. You guys were not there.
Were you a bad mother?
No. I got addicted to prescription pills.
What happened that made you miraculously better in the next 90 days?
Love and support.
Codey saved my life.
And later, you think the autopsy is part of some kind of a cover-up?
Right. These are some of the posts that Cheryl and Tommy have written about us on Facebook. It says, we murdered 2 children and got away with it. Cheryl says, I think if we all got together as a country, picked a day and shot every pedophile and child killer, what could the authorities do? Tommy said this, soon the truth will be revealed, justice will be served, and a soul will burn. Don't believe her cocaine-induced lies. I've never done cocaine in my life. These 2 are monsters who abused and murdered Kiera and Darby. Please be aware of them and protect your children and any children he might have contact with. Please meet Kiera and Darby, 2 tiny sibling angels that through horrific crimes, including abuse and murder, they have been reunited. That makes me really mad. Cheryl says, we are all onto you, Julia. Tar and Feathers is next. Kiki, darling. 2 years ago today was your last day alive on Earth. Tomorrow, your little body would have received a fatal brain injury. bruises in the shape of choke marks around your neck. How can people even say these things? What I would say to Tommy and Cheryl is, I love you guys, but you're wrong. You have ruined and shattered more lives than just me and Cody.
I want to tell you why these two say that you two are guilty of murder. I'll put it out there and then you can respond to each one. They say that first off, as a backdrop, you were a bad mother.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That during emergencies, you refused to get help for the children. That you left Darby in the crib for hours and had little connection to him. They claim that you were too tired from lupus to deal with the children, but yet went out partying at night. That you would sleep during the day and leave the children to run around unsupervised. That you were addicted to prescription drugs, and that the autopsy report stated that Darby had 2 broken ribs, bruises, and contusions, and that the autopsy states that Kiera died from blunt force trauma to her head. They believe that you are a violent man who killed both children. They believe that you neglected both children and allowed Cody to do what he did. Now, out of everything the two of you said, I've pulled those things out. So let y'all respond.
Well, that's what I've been hearing the last 4 years, and it's all wrong. All of it.
Were you a bad mother?
No, I loved my children, and I took care of them. But when I was in Georgia, I got addicted to prescription pills, and I was lost. And where were you? And where were you?
I was at work.
Why didn't you call my family and get me help?
I tried.
So
I did.
They didn't answer the phone.
I told you, go talk to them at Fort Stewart. Go talk to the psychiatrist. I told you, I said, Julia, you need to go talk to someone.
I know, and I needed help.
You
know what? I got home and I found help, and people took care of me and helped me get off of those pills.
What happened that made you miraculously better in the next 90 days?
Love and support and that good foundation.
Did you go to therapy?
No,
Did you go to detox from the antidepressants?
I quit the pills. I pulled it together. Cody saved my life. Nobody realizes you've talked so much crap on this man for 4 years, and nobody realizes what a saint he is. Nobody.
They say why they think the two of you are involved in this, but you have explanations for the deaths. That being there, you said they weren't there, you were there. You say Darby received an immunization cocktail 3 weeks to the day before he died.
Both of them did.
That Darby's ribs could have been broken during CPR, as stated in one report.
That's what they told us.
Kiera received an immunization cocktail shot 3 weeks to the day before she died. And that Kiera always had bad reactions after she got her shots.
Yes.
That Kiera fell in the bathtub a week before her death, hitting her chin and the back of her head. Kiera fell on a carpeted bedroom floor the night before she died. That she vomited in her sleep, asphyxiated, and died. Darby and Kiera were not murdered by you or anyone else.
No.
In your opinion. When Kiera passed away, she was living with her mother, Julia, Cody, and Cody's mother, Cindy. Cindy says Kiera was her best little buddy, and she was devastated by the loss, and the pain has been exacerbated by the war of hate launched by Tommy and Cheryl. We'll talk to Cindy when we come back.
I question that Kiera's autopsy was performed because I dressed her for the funeral. There was no surgical incisions to Kiera's body. I think somebody messed up really big, and I think there's just a cover-up now.
And later...
So what, did I make it up? Is that what y'all are saying?
That's what you're saying.
No,
that's what you put in a letter.
There is a reason.
Right.
There are answers to this, but we can't get it by pointing fingers.
What are the answers to it? Because
they both had an adverse reaction to their vaccinations.
in June 2010, 19-month-old Darby died, and the cause of death was listed as unknown. 3 months later, his 4-year-old sister, Kiera, also died. Now, at the time of both of their deaths, the children were living with their mother, Julia, and her now husband, Cody, and the circumstances surrounding the death of both children had similarities. And we're going to add another person to the mix. Codey's mother, Cindy, says they have been unable to properly grieve the death of the children because of the torment caused by Tommy and Cheryl.
For the last 3.5 years, Codey and Julia have been the brunt of a lot of abuse, harassment that has just spiraled beyond any control. Codey's never been violent. He's always been a peacemaker. He's always been a compassionate kid. Codey did take on Julia's kids and was just very welcoming and very proud to be in their lives. I had questions as to how the children died, but I never questioned whether Codey and Julia had anything to do in an abusive or neglectful manner. I questioned that Kiera's autopsy was performed because I saw Kiera in the funeral home and I dressed her for the funeral. There was no incision to Kiera's head. I did her hair. I put it in a ponytail. I put a little tiara on her, and there was no incision from an autopsy. I dressed her. There was no surgical incisions to Kiera's body. I'm as sure as I'm sitting here. The medical examiner told our family it was an undetermined cause of death. I think somebody messed up really big, and I think there's just a cover-up now. Without that autopsy, there's no way that we're ever going to know what did happen. And so these accusations are going to continue to fly around until we know something.
I assume, from everything I know from our talks and interviews with you, that you totally do not believe that either of these folks had anything to do with the death of these children.
That's correct.
And you think the autopsy is part of some kind of a cover-up?
I don't know what it's a part of. I know that there isn't one.
On Kiera, you say no autopsy was done.
No.
Although there's an autopsy report that I have read that is very detailed.
Right.
Tell me why you believe that was never done.
Because I dressed Kiera at the funeral home. Put underclothes on her, put a little dress on her, fixed her hair, put it in a ponytail, curled it. There were no incisions to Kiera's body.
You sent me pictures for my eyes only.
Right.
I respected that fully and completely. I looked at them, no one else has, where you're preparing her and dressing her, and you had a tiara on her head, and you did her hair, and so your point is, if they had examined the brain or had removed the brain, that there would have been an incision there. And, you know, these are the autopsy conclusions. It says the autopsy revealed a large subdural hematoma in the right parietal occipital region, which caused the brain to shift from the midline, compromising the brain's cardiorespiratory centers, resulting in death. You're saying there's no way they could know that?
They couldn't. There's no way. They can't have her brain if there wasn't an incision made to her head.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where the incisions are made for that kind of pathology?
There were no incisions on her head.
There's several things wrong with the autopsy.
Yeah, there's 360 different
typos.
Green.
Typos? Little typos.
Typos?
See, I'm more concerned about the brain injury than the color of her eyes in the autopsy.
Why would they say they did an autopsy if they didn't?
Because they had the Hodges calling them from the very get-go, telling them that it happened once already. Put them away, put them in jail.
There's several things wrong with the autopsy.
Yeah, there's 360 different
typos.
Green.
Typos, little typos.
Typos?
Indeterminate instead of undetermined.
She has pierced blue eyes, and they put it down as green. No birthmarks. And we all know she had a birthmark here and a birthmark.
See, I'm more concerned about the brain injury than the color of her eyes in the autopsy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
The choke marks around her neck.
I'm just saying the autopsy's all over.
So what, did I make it up? Is that what y'all are saying?
No, that's what you're saying.
No.
That's what you put in a letter.
There is a reason.
That's right.
There are answers to this, but we can't get it by pointing fingers at
But what
us.
are the answers to it? Because
they both had an adverse reaction to their vaccinations.
And Kiera
know
threw up
it.
so
I
hard that
know
she
it.
gave
How
herself
do you
a
know
fatal
that?
brain injury.
Because
hold on.
I'm sorry.
How do you know that?
Oh.
Tell me how you know that. I want to know.
Because, well, it wasn't something I suspected after Darby passed. But after Kiki passed, we knew it because it was 3 weeks to the day. We did the math. It was 3 weeks to the day with Darby. Went and looked at first of all, they gave her how many, 9, 10 different?
Four shots.
4 shots with 10, this just cocktail of shots. She was drowsy and out of it and threw up on the bus, the school bus. I'm just telling you, I know as a mother, I know that those vaccinations.
So you don't have proof of it. You're just saying from a mother's intuition, which, by the way, I have great respect for a mother's intuition. But I'm not saying I agree with you or disagree, but you're saying you just know it in your heart.
And
you haven't seen any toxicology reports or otherwise that suggest that it in fact was, because you say there wasn't even an autopsy done.
Right.
But my question to you is, and I'm not saying you know, I'm just wondering what your theory is, why they would, A, not do an autopsy, and B, then say they did.
It was just a mistake. I think someone made a mistake, and instead of saying, whoa, we made a mistake, it just snowballed into something, into where we are right here today. I just think it was a mistake. I think they failed to do the autopsy.
And then covered it by writing up a report so they didn't have...
I mean, they have my son's birthday on it instead of my daughter's birthday. They have just things that don't match up. How can they have done their job if they can't even get my daughter's birthday right? They can't even get that she's got blue eyes instead of green eyes. Right. Ears pierced, they say no, but she did.
Well, let's talk about these alternative explanations, because what we have here is Tommy and Cheryl say that these children were murdered. They were killed, that their brains were swollen, that they had bruises, and they were beaten. But yet, we have a completely different story from Julia and Codey who say no. I mean, there are other explanations for this. So we're going to find out if SIDS, vomiting, or vaccinations are in fact viable explanations for the deaths of Darby and Kiera. And by the way, y'all do agree that 2 deaths of otherwise healthy children in the same home within 3 months of each other is highly unusual.
Absolutely. This
right?
doesn't happen to everybody.
So for somebody to go, whoa, wait a minute, that's normal, right? I mean, you would expect people to go, that is highly unusual. Yeah. Something's going on here. We're going to take a break, and then I have an expert from Doctor on Demand when we come back.
To those that say it's too much of a coincidence, I would say it is a coincidence. I don't owe anybody any explanation. I woke up to a child dead. Why should I have to explain any more? Lightning does strike twice. They just said there's no way someone can lose 2 children and not be responsible for it. I don't have any answers for you. It's just an ongoing nightmare, just a horrible coincidence.
Well, that is the main question we're asking today. Were the deaths of 19-month-old Darby and 4-year-old Kiera just coincidences? They occurred approximately 3 months apart, and each death occurred 3 weeks after being vaccinated. Darby's father and Kiera's stepfather say he is convinced that his ex-wife Julia and her then-boyfriend and current husband Codey killed the children. Is that true or is it not? Now, you certainly have some theories as to how this could have happened, and I'm going to pull up our Doctor on Demand resource here. The reason I'm holding this phone is this is an app that connects us directly with the doctors, and this is mirrored onto this phone here. And if you at home want to have your own Doctor on Demand, which is an app that Jay and I have created. You can go to Google Play or the App Store and download it. I see that we have our doctor on hand. All right. Hello, Dr. Harbison. Thank you so much. Listen, I am not going to get you embroiled in this case at all. You don't know the facts of this, and therefore I can't ask you to speak on causation of the death of these two children. What I do want you to do is give us some medical expertise. What are the chances, what are the odds that a child would die 3 weeks after vaccination as a result of the vaccine?
Very rarely, people have reported about 1 in 1 million an allergic reaction to a vaccine. And that would happen within minutes or hours after receiving the vaccine.
What are the chances that the vaccine could be a cause of death 3 weeks after it being administered? Just from a differential standpoint, would that be on your short list of considerations?
No, not at all. 3 weeks out, most doctors probably wouldn't even ask about vaccines because it would be so remote from the actual incident that it would not be a serious consideration.
That would not be on your list of considerations. All right, what would be the chances that a second child who is 4 years old, the first one being 18, 19 months old, the second one 4 years old, would also die from vaccinations in the same family, same home, same situation, that it would happen not just once but twice?
Mm-hmm. Well, having a second kid experience any kind of adverse reaction would be even less likely than having just one child experience such a reaction to a vaccine. The odds of both children having had that is not something we would consider to be associated at all with vaccines.
All right. Now, let's move on and talk about SIDS, because one of the doctors apparently said to you, Julia, in the hospital that this was SIDS, correct?
Cody, my mom, and my dad.
Okay, to all of you that it was SIDS. Now, again, what are the chances that a 19-month-old child weighing 23 pounds dying of SIDS?
Sudden infant death syndrome is really something that we think about within the first 12 months of life. The most likely time that it is to occur is between 2 months and 4 months. So these are generally babies who are not able to move themselves. So by 19 months, it is not something that I would be considering as a pediatrician as an explanation.
Okay, and if a child was vomiting and aspirated vomit, this would be, again, highly unlikely related to a vaccine that took place 3 weeks earlier, correct?
Exactly, yeah, not 3 weeks later.
All right, Dr. Harbison, thank you so much for joining us and weighing in about vaccines and SIDS on this. Helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show.
All right. What's your reaction to what's being said here?
It doesn't surprise me. I got all my information from the vaccinations from the CDC website. And
They have a vaccine adverse reaction event site where you can go and you 1 in a million times you'll have like an allergic reaction, but
well,
for it to cause death
as a child, I always reacted. My dad had an adverse reaction to him when he was in the military. It's something. It's something other than the abuse, which did not occur.
As a mother, I would think this would be a mystery you would want to solve.
I do.
And you have a world-class expert here that we pulled up on Doctor on Demand. And let me tell you, we have thousands of doctors on Doctor on Demand. That's our own app that we have for people to be able to punch a button and talk to a doctor. We have the best of the best on Doctor on Demand, and she's telling you this wouldn't even be on the decision tree.
Yeah.
That if you're sitting around telling yourself that this was caused from vaccination, that's just simply not the case. Well, sadly, we have run out of time today. Here are some highlights from tomorrow's show.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, the mystery continues.
We've been accused of something that we didn't do.
The parents' question.
If you weren't involved in it, I would assume you'd want to know what happened here.
The evidence examined.
You have a child dead as a result of blunt force trauma to the head.
You said there were broken ribs.
I don't believe my child had any sort of abuse.
Are you convinced that it wasn't a reaction to vaccination?
No.
The dramatic conclusion.
Would you like to take a polygraph?
I just don't feel comfortable someone hooking me up.
Would you like to take a polygraph?
That's tomorrow.
You won't want to miss tomorrow. Find out how this family drama will end. I do want to thank my guests for being here today because I know this is tough to talk about. So long.